All right, everyone. I think we're ready to start. Welcome to our webinar. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for everyone for registering. Many of you come from all corners of Europe. I'm Maxine. I'll be your moderator today. There's a few things you might want to know ahead of the start of this session, which will be pretty packed. So the first thing is please mute yourselves and turn off your webcams throughout. This is important to preserve bandwidth. There will be dedicated question and answer moments throughout this webinar, and we ask that you save your questions for then so that we can stick to our schedule. If you have any technical issues, feel free to send a private message to the CEF Building Blocks account that you can see in the WebEx chat. It's the one with the blue icon. That is our host, and he will be able to help you. And finally, please note that this webinar will be recorded and that we will share the slides after the session. All right, we're ready to start. So let's take a look at everything that's on our menu today. We have a lot to get through. First, we'll be introducing you to our European Commission vision and set the stage. Then we'll share the insight we gathered from our registration survey with you. We'll then spend some time explaining some of our digital solutions to you, followed by time for questions. Then we will move on to explaining our service offering. And finally, we'll take some time to interact with you using the live surveying tool Menti. So once again, please save your questions for the dedicated Q&A and address your technical issues to the CEF Building Blocks via a WebEx message, and make sure to be muted and to turn off your cameras. All right, so your host today we're basically as a European Commission in a collaboration between the DG CNECT and DG for Informatics. And I will go through the list of speakers that you'll be hearing throughout the webinar. So there's myself, I'm Maxine. I work as the marketing manager for CEF Digital. And together with Rob, who is behind the CEF Building Blocks account, I will be leading this webinar and keeping time to make sure we get through our ambitious program. We have Joao at DIGIT, who will introduce the CEF Digital program, and Maximilian, the ISA2 program. Anna Marie from DG CNECT will say a word about the Digital Innovation Hubs program. And then moving on, we have Asta, Aldo, who will introduce you to some of ISA2 solutions, and Lewis and Kelly and Caroline to some of CEF Digital solutions. I will reintroduce them as they're speaking. So without further ado, I will pass the floor to Anna Marie, the Deputy Head of the Technologies and Systems for Digitizing Industry Unit in DG CNECT of the European Commission, who will give some context as to why we're all here today. Anna Marie, the floor is yours. A couple of minutes.
Thank you, Maxime. Good morning, everybody. So why are we here today? Well, we know from the registration details that most of you are involved in the Digital Innovation Hubs initiatives. And since 2016, the Commission is investing in a network of digital innovation hubs covering all of Europe. And every one of these hubs should help companies, especially SMEs, with their digital transformation. So in the current financial framework, we are mostly doing that through innovation actions in Horizon 2020. And there, networks of hubs are supporting SMEs to experiment and test with innovative digital technologies. But for the next multi-annual financial framework, so that starts in 2021, there will be an additional source of investments, and that is through a totally new program, which is called the Digital Europe program. This program is investing in digital capacities and also in the digital innovation hubs. So if you get a grant in Digital Europe program for a digital innovation hub, that grant is foreseen to strengthen the capacity of the hub. So it means you can invest in facilities, hardware and software, and also in more people working for the hub. We foresee to support around 200 digital innovation hubs spread all over Europe. And every hub will be 50% financed from Digital Europe program and 50% from the member states. So we have a co-investment with the member states and the regions. Another new issue, and that's especially why we have this webinar today, is that the hubs will not focus only on industry or on SMEs, but also on public services and public administrations, because also public administrations, they have a difficulty with understanding how to move to more digital ways of working, and hubs would be in a good position to help them. So this is now exactly the topic of today. We want to explain to you, because most of you are from the Digital Innovation Hub community, what are the building blocks that are already available now that any Digital Innovation Hub could use to support public administrations with their digital transformation. There has already been several webinars before on this topic. For instance, on 30th of April, there was one related to what can hubs do for smart cities. On the 20th of May, there was one, what can digital innovation hubs do related to health and care. These are all public sector areas. And there, the building blocks coming from two programs, CEF and ISA2, they were mentioned. But today we will have the time to go into more detail into some of these building blocks. So I am really happy to see that so many of you connected today to learn more about this. And well, we have indeed, as Maxime said, a packed program. So I suggest we immediately start with it, and I will hand over to João.
Hi, Anna Marie. I'm taking the floor back and I'll hand over to João in a minute. Thank you very much. So I will quickly explain to you guys the vision that DIGIT and DG CNECT have of a connected Europe before passing the floor over to João and Max so that they can explain the CEF and ISA2 programs. So before introducing the programs, I want to talk a little bit about our shared vision. So as you well know, the internet has transformed our world. This is true for public administrations who increasingly must offer digital services, and it is true for businesses and supply chains that are growing beyond borders as the internet facilitates international trade. That is to say, the European single market has gone digital. And ultimately, all of us gathered here today in this call have a common goal, which is to accelerate the digital transformation of Europe by helping businesses and public administrations connect and integrate into the digital single market. But to truly have interconnectivity between all of these units in this digital economy, they need to be able to talk to each other. Namely, we need to operate using the same standards and specifications on a European-wide scale in order to truly have an interconnected single market in this digital age. And since 2014, the European Commission has been working on precisely that, to create the conditions for that interconnectedness. It has been doing so by regulating to encourage the adoption of European-wide specifications and standards, and then by enabling the adoption of those standards by providing ready-made solutions that are compliant with these standards. So carrots and sticks, if you will. On the regulation side, if you're familiar with these, you can think e-delivery, e-seals, e-signature. And on the enabling side, we are talking about the distribution of compliance solutions and a package of supporting services, such as assistance with the implementation or adoption of these solutions. And these solutions that help enable the adoption of the standards and the support that is provided to adopt the solutions, we call that package building blocks or open and reusable solutions. These words will come up later in the presentation. So if you hear them, this is what we mean by them. We mean digital solutions that are made available and that are compliant with standards. You will hear about these solutions very soon. But first, I want to properly introduce you to the two European Commission programs that are actually hosting you today and that distribute such building blocks or open and reusable solutions. So, meet CEF, the Connecting Europe Facility, and ISA2. They're two programs that were designed to help implement e-government through the development and distribution of these standards and solution. But with time, they've grown to nurture and benefit from this interconnected network between the public and private sectors, because there is an overlap between the needs of both when it comes to interoperability and interconnectedness.
Yeah.
Now, through our survey that you all filled in, and thank you for that, we found out that most of you actually do not know know about our programs. 61% of you do not know CEF, the Connecting Europe Facility, and 71% of you do not know ISA Square. So now I want to give the floor. Could everyone mute yourselves, please? Thank you. And also turn off your cameras, please. Thank you. So, without further, if everyone, could you please mute yourselves and turn off your cameras? That would be great. Thank you very much. Okay, so
or we can mute everyone else as well.
Yes, we have. Yeah,
Maxine.
we have. Yes. Well, I mean, João, you have the floor now, so I'll leave it to you. João, the head of sector of the CEF Digital Building Blocks at DIGIT, will now introduce the CEF program, and you have a couple of minutes. Go for it, João.
Okay. Thank you very much, Maxine. Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank you, of course, for having registered and connected today to learn about the CEF building blocks and the ISA solutions. I will just reinforce some of the messages that Maxine already explained. So I think the first message is that we are all of us here today because of the ongoing digital transformation in Europe that impacts and affects and transforms all sectors of our society. So we are talking about, of course, health, and we have this recent COVID crisis that really shows the need of digital solutions. But we also talk about justice, we talk about social security. Virtually every sector is going to become digital. And that means that both public and private entities need to participate in this transformation. So I would say that in general, the digital transformation is a good thing for Europe, and we all know that. This is why we're working on it on the side of the Commission, together with the member states. But we cannot forget the challenges. And this is the message I would like to reinforce to all of you, because the Connecting Europe Facility, this program that somehow created the building blocks, will also move into the Digital Europe program, together with the innovation hubs, together with ISA solutions. And I think that altogether, we have to keep in mind some of the challenges ahead of us. And I would say that for Europe, the main challenge is the respect of the four freedoms and the respect of the single market. So when we go digital, we have to think about removing barriers and not creating new barriers for cross-border and cross-sector transactions.
It's time.
Okay, sorry. So let me just finish. So how do we do this? And the main message, I think this will also be Max's message, is that we need EU-wide interoperability. And we need to promote digital solutions based on standards that create an ecosystem of private and public entities that together basically go through and help the public administrations and the private sector to participate in this transformation. I think together we can really create this ecosystem, and I hope that you are interested in a collaboration with us in making this a reality. And I pass them to Max.
Yes, over to Maximilian Strutman, the Deputy Head of the Interoperability Unit at DG DIGIT. Max, the floor is yours. You have a little less than 2 minutes.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Maxine. It's always nice to speak with another Max on the other side. Good morning. Yeah, João, Anne-Marie, everybody said it already. The context, ISA, the ISA2 ISA Square program is a long-standing partner of the Connecting Europe facility and actually other programs around the Commission Europe since many, many years. And we have a common future in the Digital Europe program, which I think is a very good clarification. I totally link on what João said. We have two basic concepts that drive us. One is freedom and the other one is the community. We believe in the freedom to organize our own businesses or departments, and there is no one-size-fits-it-all solution top-down from Europe. We are totally against that, but we cannot live in splendid isolation either. So we need to work with other sectors, companies, communities, and the COVID crisis, as Joao just said, exposed this brutally, what we have been lacking. So we need common basic approaches, standards and tools and rules, but we don't want these to be set by a single or a few dominant market leaders. We think the community, we self should set these rules. And that's what the ISA program does. We are a community across Europe of public administrations and companies, and we develop together the core interoperability models for the EU since 20 years, more or less. We have the European Interoperability Framework, that is the conceptual tool that says semantic, technical, legal, and organizational interoperability. All of that matters. And we produce together tools and models that are openly available and free to reuse by everybody. It's open source, it's openly available. You can check it out on the JoinUp website. And member states, actually, and regional administrations start putting their own solutions in there. So it's a growing community. We have a strong focus on semantic assets, and we have a big event coming October, and we will present some of the stuff afterwards with you. We are open to businesses. That's why the digital innovation hubs for us are important. Check it out with us. Cheers.
Max, just on time. Okay, I'll move on because we have a lot to get through still. So quickly, wanted to go over some of the insights that we gathered about you during our registration survey. Big disclaimer, I pulled these figures at the start of this week, but some more people answered the survey since then, so it might not be fully representative, but it still gives a very good idea of it's still a statistically significant sample. So first of all, who are you? The majority of you are digital innovation hubs, and the majority of you, interestingly, evenly serve both the private and the public sectors of your country. And in the private sector, those of you who serve the private sector serve in the majority SMEs or medium-sized companies. However, we also see there's a decent number of you that do serve companies with more than 200 employees, so fairly large ones. When it comes to the public sector, we see that regional administrations are the most served. We asked you what levels of government you typically interact with, but this is closely followed by local government and national and federal administrations. So again, interesting. Finally, we asked you what kinds of services are typically requested by your target audience, whether they be in the private or the public sector. Naturally, we asked about the main digital innovation hubs competencies, and indeed, networking, skills building, sharing information, and funding assistance are in the lead. But we see testing before investing and cross-border activities also strongly represented. And a non-negligible portion of you offer help to your audience when it comes to going to market. So that means communications, strategy, distribution plans, etc. So all of this confirmed to us that it would be interesting for you to find out a bit more about our solutions. So all right, let's move on immediately. I want to introduce you to some of the digital solutions that CEF and ISA2 distribute. So because most of you are actually unfamiliar with what we do, and the overwhelming majority of our solutions are completely unknown to you. Aside from e-invoicing and e-signature, that a little over half of you knew about, most of our other open and reusable solutions you have not heard of. So let's get to know them. I'll now invite speakers to present the solutions to you one by one. They're all experts in the subject matter. Now I'll lay out some ground rules. So each speaker will get no more than 2 minutes to introduce their solution. There will be time for questions after this section at the very end, but please keep a note of any questions you might have, and you will have the opportunity to ask them, but I am asking you not to interrupt the speakers during their pitches as they are timed, and I will need this to go on time so that we can keep on to our program. Our timekeepers, CEF building blocks, will call time. There will be an alarm that sounds off when the sleeping slot is over. So, all right, let's start. Caroline Corneau, project manager for the CEF building blocks at DIGIT, with the CEF context broker. I will start the timer. Rob, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Perfect. So on our count, 3, 2, 1, and we go.
Hi, I hope you can hear me well. No pressure, but I'm very happy to open the ball by presenting the CEF Context Broker building block. So I want to show you what this component is and how it can be used to develop smart solutions that make use of real-time data that can come from a variety of sources, including IoT devices and sensors. And the goal is to make sense of this data in its entire context to make better fact-based decisions. Okay, so why is it interesting and why this name context broker? So context first. Well, we all know we have loads of information, but it only makes sense in the right context, where it comes from and when and how it relates to other elements and events. That's how you make a decision, right? And so broker, well, broker is the middleman or the go-between. So our software is a middleware to consolidate data from different sources and combine them. And then it can be used at the heart of an application or a service designed to enable real-time smart decision-making. And so very quickly, how does it work? Well, as for each CEF building block, as we heard, the software is based on a standard. So it is meant to be interoperable and integrated, and it is also free and secure. But what you have around it are the services that we offer to help you get started. So either you as someone who wants to use it for your own organization on your data, or someone who wants to build a service and provide services using Context Broker at its core. So you see it here, we have technical documentation, compliance testing, support services. And I'll finish with that. What we also have is our team of experts, and we have trainings, and we can offer advice and support to real concrete use cases to get your project on track. Thank you.
Perfect timing.
Wonderful, Caroline. Thank you. So as our e-translation representative couldn't make it, I'll take a stab at explaining our e-translation solution to you now. So Rob, call the time and I'll start.
Yeah, go.
Okay, e-translation, it's in the name. It's a European Commission machine translation tool that you can start using immediately on our platform or integrate into your own solution. It's free and translates to and from any of the 24 official EU languages and some extras like Mandarin Chinese and Japanese and some more. It also does not store your data, so it protects your privacy. How does e-translation work? Well, it's based on AI, neural network technology. More than 1 billion sentences were fed into the 24 official EU languages produced by translators of the EU institutions over the past decades. As such, they are particularly suited to the needs of EU policy documents. But it's not only a translation tool for EU legalese. More and more domains of interest are added every day, including recently an e-health specific domain of particular interest. And what can you do with e-translation? Well, you can either use the tool on an EC-hosted platform or integrate it straight into your system via an API. This tool is open to small and medium enterprises and any public administration and respects the security and confidentiality of your data. And it's easy. You can drag and drop a document into the tool, and it preserves the structure and formatting of a document while giving it back to you translated. It also enables you to translate multiple documents in one go. And like I said, there are a wealth of languages to translate to and from, and some domain-specific engines, as well as a general engine if you have specific semantic requirements. So that's it for me. I will leave it there. Did I make time, Rob?
Great, you made time. Yeah, time to spare.
Fantastic.
So on to the next one.
On to the next one. So Caroline, again, for e-invoicing. If you're ready and Rob is ready on the clock, then we can go. Call it, Rob.
Yeah, go.
I am ready. Okay, so with e-invoicing, we enter the world of public procurement, but I want to say not only. So with this building block, I want to show you how you can use, again, our services to put yourself out there in cross-border online trade and contribute to the modernization or the transformation of the procurement process. So behind e-invoicing, there's a directive and a policy, and its scope is business to government. So basically, all EU public administrations as contracting authorities have to be able to receive and process electronic invoices that are compliant with the European standard on electronic invoicing. And the goal, of course, by making all invoices fit the same standard, the same data structure, is that you should be able to invoice just as easily in any EU member state. So basically, in that sense, e-invoicing contributes to the European digital single market. And this is where the business opportunity is. All trading parties, so the buyers and the sellers, as well as the IT solution providers, can benefit from the gains of process automation and can then take part in cross-border procurement. So how to get on board with e-invoicing? So we are here to support both public administrations and service providers in their e-invoicing journey. We can help with understanding the standard and adopting it in your solution through documentation and conformance testing. And we also have a snapshot of the situation for each member state in our country fact sheet. So that's the go-to source of information if you want to do business in a particular country. And then we have supporting services, trainings, implementation workshops, help desk support. And you can also join our community online and contribute to the future of e-invoicing and e-invoicing policy making with other stakeholders from both the public and the private sector across Europe. Thanks.
Perfect time. Thank you, Caroline. All right. Let's move on. I'll now invite Lewis, the onboarding manager for CEF e-signature, who works here at DIGIT at the CEF SMO. So, Lewis, you have 2 minutes on the clock when Rob calls it. If you're ready, then we go.
All right, great. So, Rob, whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'll call time. Don't worry. I'll start the clock now.
Okay. So, e-signature is the CEF building block that's focused on allowing you to developing your solutions for signing electronically in order with the EDIH regulation, which is the one that establishes the framework for trust services in Europe. So that enables interoperability of your e-signatures throughout Europe. So regarding how it works, the CEF e-signature is composed of a series of components and standards in the shape of libraries that are reusable by the users and that will allow you compliance in your solutions. So in this sense, you will have the DSS open source library, which is basically a library composed of standards and reusable pieces of software that you will use to, or you can use to build your signing solutions, and it will ensure the compliance with the IDAs. You have a trust listed browser, which will allow you to browse in search of certificates for signing, and also we will allow you to. We have the TL Manager, which is an application that the people in the member states use for managing the trusted list. So this will allow you basically to build your own solutions, to test your solutions to ensure that these solutions are compliant with the IDAs, and also we will help you find proper certificates to sign electronically in a safe and interoperable way in Europe.
30 seconds, Lewis.
Well, to say, as I was saying, the good thing about e-signature is that it will allow in a very easy way to ensure conformance with the IDAs. So this fosters interoperability, and in the current context, it's very interesting because the e-signature allows the digitalization of services, and it will reduce your burden and ensure the interoperability.
Time. Thank you, Lewis. Sorry about that. We have to be disciplined. Let's keep
No
going.
worries. Yeah.
But I'm sure you got the gist of it and you got to say most. So I'm now passing the floor to Asta Gricien of the DIGIT Interoperability Unit to talk to you about the ISA solution, CoreVox. Asta, I have 2 minutes on the clock. If you're ready, then I'll just start.
Okay, I'm ready. Good morning, everybody. I will present the CoreVox. So CoreVox stands for e-government core vocabularies. As you can see from the slides, we are talking here about simplified and extensible data models. Next slide, please. These data models define the essential characteristics of data entity in business-agnostic way, meaning that these vocabularies can be reused cross-domain and cross-border. The business need for the CoreVox came from the exchange of the information between systems where there is a lack of commonly agreed data models. Next slide, please. So in short, these vocabularies can be reused for development of new systems, enable the information exchange between the systems, data integration. I will present the success story later, and also publishing the data in common export format. Next slide, please. We have several core vocabularies, and I would like to mention some of examples, like core person, which captures the main characteristics of a person, such as name, gender, date of birth, or location, or core business, which also defines the main elements of legal entity, such as identifiers or activities. And there are other vocabularies, such as public service, location, public event, and so on. So to finalize, I would like to point out that CoreVox were developed with active involvement of the public and private stakeholders. And if you want to learn more, please visit the Joiner platform. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Asta. With time to spare, perfect. Okay, I'll now invite Maximilian Strootman, the head of DIGIT's interoperability unit, to explain to you what ISA testbed does. 2 minutes on the clock, Max. Tell me if you're ready.
I think I will do it because I think there was, yes, I will do the interoperability testbed also. Okay, so
fantastic, go.
Yes, testbed. So for me, it's a bit funny name, but it's not about the bed. It's in fact the tool for interoperability and conformance testing. So what is it about? It can be used for deploying a distributed application or a central service to which other systems will need to connect, or when the system has to be connected to a central service and you want to ensure the interoperability between the interconnecting systems. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. It can be used for few cases: simulation of web services, validation of content, conformance testing, and verification of a complex messages exchanges. Next slide, please. And at the moment, the testbed is provided to public service as a service. Due to our limited resources, we can't provide it as a service to private entities, but they are free to reuse the code and establish if they want their own testbed. In this case, we could help you training how to use it and kind of the train the trainer approach. So again, if you want to learn more, please check the Joiner platform. Thank you.
Okay, great. That's perfect with time to spare. And obviously, you said go on the Joiner platform to learn more, and it's now time to find out about the Joiner platform. I'm guessing it will be Max who will present this then?
Yeah, Max, that's me. And actually, I think it would be better than that Asta does it, because she does it perfectly. Join up, she says, this is the place to go to. I said in the beginning, we are about freedom and community, and Join up is both, because this is a free space where you can go all to collaborate and share solutions. The opportunity is that we see this is the place to go to post your collections. If you could switch this slide, please, then you see the description. This is the one-stop shop for e-government, e-governance, and other tools. You can post your materials there. You can collaborate there. This is the door to code that is posted on GitHub. It is open for everybody worldwide, not only across Europe, and in particular also for SMEs and startups. Together today, we have 16,000 users on it. How does it work? It has three main functions. It's the sharing of information. You can publish stuff. You can find stuff. It is a catalog. It is a repository of interoperable solutions. And it allows practical collaboration around projects. What can we do with it? We said it. It's a collaborative platform. It is an observatory repository. You find there the access to the GitHub code, but importantly also it is possible there to federate with other repositories. And for example, Spain and Slovenia are in the process or have already posted all their own open reusable solutions on JoinUp. Go and check it out. Thanks, over from here.
Thank you, Max. With time to spare, such great timing today. So let's move on to our final solution that we want to introduce you today, TESTA. I'll give the floor to Aldo Gretsch. I hope I'm saying this correctly. If not, I apologize for butchering your name. Aldo is the program manager for EU policies TESTA at DIGIT. Aldo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Max, and good morning, everyone. I'm happy to share a bit with you some information on TESTA. I've noticed that TESTA perhaps is not that widely known among you, but I am pretty confident that a number of you are using it and you're not even potentially aware that you are. Next slide, please. So what is TESTA? TESTA is has commonality between all the other blocks, in the sense that we are a long-standing partner of ISA2 and recently also to CEF, so that is the commonality. One less common point is that it's a legacy system. It has been established way back in the early 90s. It's a network that transports all data, all what the building blocks are outputting and exchanging between themselves. So, in a matter of fact, it is comparable to your internet connection at home, that once you have it, it is working and up and running.
1
Who we
minute.
do connect? We are connecting all EU member states, all EU institutions, European agencies and EFTA countries. We are available 24/7. We deliver our data in a very efficient way, not just in terms of speed, but also in terms of security. We do big emphasis on security. And we also have high availability and redundancy everywhere. So basically, TESTA is the platform that is powering Europe and the exchange of information between member states and the concerned entities. So what is TESTA? TESTA is your network, the network that is powering all this information exchange generated from building blocks and other applications which are outside of this context.
Perfect. Time. All right. Turn off this timer, and thank you, Aldo, and thank you all for introducing your building block. So everyone, there will be time for questions in a few minutes. I wanted to jump in and say that, you know, wow, lots of food for thought here. So if you were to want to use one of these solutions, if you were an SME or a public administrations that wanted to, how could you go about that? Well, there are a few options. You could buy one of these, you could buy a compliant solution from the market that would be compliant with the standards that we've just explained. You could build your own EU compliant solution based on standards, and we, CEF and ISA, can help you test it for compliance and interoperability. Or you could use sample software that we've made available through the European Commission through the CEF or ISA programs. In all cases, CEF and ISA are here to help you and help those trying to implement our building blocks and open and reusable solutions. So before we move to questions about these solutions, I just wanted to showcase how these solutions have actually been used. So it's time to get inspired. Carolyn, you will take a couple of minutes to tell you about this. So Carolyn, the floor is yours. I've put the clock again on 2 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Maxine. So yeah, this first story and example is about our big data test infrastructure building block. And I just want to say also that some of our building blocks are obviously integrated into each other. And this is the case for BDTI as it's connected with the context broker. But so about this building block, so BDTI, it's a platform that offers safe virtual environments with a set also of data and analytics tools that allows public organizations to experiment with big data and share data sources. And the aim is to move towards data-driven decision making. And so this example is about how BDTI is helping to use scientific clinical evidence against COVID-19 in Valencia. So the Valencian Pharmacy and Health Products Authority wanted to develop a tool to analyze and synthesize the existing scientific evidence on COVID-19. And the goal is to extract the knowledge contained in this data and provide it to medical staff through data visualization tools. So a 6-month pilot project was launched to develop a tool for systematic review of scientific clinical articles, and the tool uses machine learning to perform text mining tasks, and BDTI is used to collect raw business data from a COVID-19 dataset and produce descriptive graphs to support clinical practice and also processes. So the goal, of course, here is to identify patterns in the medical literature with a view to find the most effective treatment.
Okay. Well, I mean, we made time, so let's move on to your second story. That's we have. Oh, sorry, gone too fast. Okay, so Carolyn, back to you. 2 minutes on the clock to explain this one.
Okay, yeah, okay. So it's about e-invoicing again, and this is a use case about a project in the healthcare health sector, which was funded through a CEF Telecom grant. So it's about public healthcare institutions implementing e-invoicing with the help of a service provider. And this company develops platforms for data transmission between organizations. And of course, you can read the full story on the link with the link that you have there. But the problems with the hospitals that hospitals across Europe are using different electronic invoicing formats, and so this makes system interoperability more complicated. Now, thanks to this service provider and the CEF program, public hospitals from these different countries that you see are now prepared to the invoicing European standard. And so they save time and money, and of course, they are compliant to the invoicing directive. So this is a great example of how service providers can work with CEF and use our CEF services. So in their work, they used our specifications, our conformance testing service, and help desk support to make sure that the solution that they developed was compliant with the European standard on invoicing. That's it from me.
We made time again. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
For our next story, we have Asta, who's going to explain how Corvox were used. Asta, you have 2 minutes on the clock. If you're ready, then I'm ready to go.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Maxine. So yes, the story of the Corvox in Trentino region is one of the success stories. In this case, the core vocabulary for public event was reused to build an open agenda and event calendar that updates real-time appointments created by associations, libraries, and museums. Open agenda is based on the strengths of the open data that are available through APIs. It offers a new opportunity for the local communities in terms of the open government, strengthening the relationship between the government and the citizen. And the added value of the Corvox in this case was from the operational point of view, it greatly facilitated the interoperability between the applications already on the market. So the provider didn't need to reinvent the wheel. It reduced also the development cost because it was feasible, sustainable for customers. From the relational point of view, it increased the bargaining power of the local authorities towards suppliers who are not inclined to integrations. And last but not least, in addition, it opened the market for innovative solutions based on disruptive and widely scalable technologies. That's it for me.
Thank you, Asta. God, we're doing so good on time today. Our last inspirational story will be coming from Aldo to say a word about TESTA. Aldo, the floor is yours. You have 2 minutes on the clock.
Thank you, Maxine. So as TESTA is a network, and we cannot really speak about one application, so I wanted to speak to you about what we do and what we do transport. One of the applications which I've noticed that you've interacted quite a number of times is eHealth. So eHealth is one of our customers actually, and we do transact eHealth information over our network. But there are also other information systems running along, like those dealing with financial intelligence, or the EESSI, which is basically an application between member states where the social security file follows the owner wherever she is in Europe. Plus also examples like Taconet, which enables truckers to drive into Europe without bending or breaking the rules of drivers that have been exposed to long driving hours and inhumane conditions. And also other high security and high profile information systems. What is good to know is that TESTA is there, it's connected. It's like, once again, you like your internet connection at home. So all you need is to power up your application, your hardware, connect and do your stuff without really need to do anything. So it is a fundamental block. It is there, it is in the background, and it is working for you at basically your own will and at your own decision, and like that it's really something efficient and ready for use. Thank you, Maxine.
Thank you, Aldo. We're doing so great today for time. Okay, so now is the time for Q&A. I will ask you all to either take your phone and go to the website or open a browser window. and then enter the code that you see appear here. I will now do the dreaded switch over from one screen share to another, so don't panic if suddenly things go a little funny. All right, so have all of you gone to menti.com and used the share code? Because if you have, then you can start typing in any question you might have. I will read them out and then assign them to speakers, or the speakers can jump in and answer them themselves. The code is 515796, and the website is www.menti.com. So we have 10 minutes here for questions, but obviously if there are none and everything was perfectly clear, then we can move on. This is your time to ask anything you might be wondering about the solutions that were just presented, the 8 of them. So for reminder, that was the context broker, e-invoicing, e-translation, e-signature on the CEF side, and then Core Vox, the testbed, join up, and TESTA from ISA. Okay, so I see a question come in. Do you have specific communication tools for digital innovation hubs to spread all this information about your solutions? Actually, yes. The next section that will come up is about the kind of communication services that we provide. However, I can already tell you we have a lot of information available. We do we prepare a lot of decks, videos, social media communication about these solutions, and if you're actually interested in that, then we will talk about it in the latter portion of our presentation, but this is something we can assist you with. In the meantime, I would refer you to our respective websites, and the links will be provided at the end.
Can you name the website, Maxime?
Yes, the links are at the very end of the presentation, but it's ec.europa.eu/CEF Digital for CEF and ec.europa.eu/ISA for ISA Square. So how can higher education institutions participate through research and education in your program? Actually, I don't know who wants to take that question. Is one of the speakers interested?
I can start quickly.
Yes, go for it, Joel.
The CEF program offered grants. So one of the ways that we saw the participation of universities and research institutes were through these grants. So they basically pitched their project and they received funding to implement it. If, let's say, you don't want to go through the granting process, you can just go to the website and reuse the solution. Maybe Isa?
Max or Asta?
Perfect. Sounds good. This is we have a standing line, let's say, to cooperation with education institutions, and in addition, maybe this is interesting for you to know that we are currently together with colleagues across the Commission and the member states and research organizations are putting together a program on interoperability skilling and teaching, which collects interoperability relevant courses, in particular on the interoperability framework, which will be made available under the brand of Interoperability Academy, also in the future Digital Europe program. Information like all of that on the ISA Square solutions and the CEF solutions actually is available on the JoinUp platform.
Yes. Could you also take the is JoinUp used for open data sets question, Max, while we're at it?
Yes,
Maxime,
of course.
Yes.
Just to clarify, of course, the Connecting Your Facility program is ending this year. Therefore, 2020 is the last year of CEF grants. Also include the link to the website of the agency that manages those grants. It's the INEA agency. So you can still check the grants of the Connecting Your Facility in 2020. But of course, then the idea is that this will all move to the Digital Europe program, and there will be a new round of funding. So don't be disappointed in case you notice that, of course, given the fact that the program ends this year, this will be the last round of Connecting Your Facility grants. We will all be moving together with ISA and the Digital Innovation Hubs to the DEP program. Go ahead, Max.
Perfect. So open data sets quickly. I think the answer is pretty straightforward.
Yes, yes, it's an absolute yes. And maybe interesting on this, if you allow me, also that the join-up platform as such can be reused as well, because the source code for this is available. So you can build your own platform, collaborative platform, reusing the code for join-up. And this has been done, for example, in the recent COVID reaction by the research colleagues in the Commission.
Perfect. And I'm guessing that the answer to the question that's now popping out on screen as well would be join up.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're perfectly right. Yes, there is in community on JoinUp which is built about around the CoreVox. So everything what you want to know there about the CoreVox, you can go there and find.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Maxime, can I come in on this one, on the question of copyright that comes up there and intellectual property rights? Maybe what is very interesting, the Joiner platform contains a license assistant that helps you as a company, as an administration, as a researcher to determine which open license is best suited for your project if you want to make available openly your own work. And you can just, you're guided through like a wizard to help you choose the right licensing tool.
Perfect. We're halfway through our time for questions, so I'll just move through a few of those. And the level of awareness in IT and software that people in DIH need to have for accessing and using all of these tools. Maybe João and Max, you want to address this one?
I didn't understand.
What level of awareness in IT and software do people in Digital Innovation Hub need to access and use all of these tools? I think the core thing here is that these tools are mostly to distribute to people who in the public and private sectors that you interact with might need them.
The question,
it is.
Go ahead, Max.
It's actually the whole range. It depends on who you are, what you do. So in principle, there is no need for particular IT or software skills in order to access the information and see what can be useful for you when you build your own services, when you want to work with a public administration, for example, if you're a startup. But then the digger you dig, the more information you find and the more technical the language and the tools will be. But this is exactly what we need. So we need a combination of the policymakers, the businesses, and the IT specialist, and all the information is actually for all these user groups there.
I will complement that, Max, just with one idea. And I think the idea is the idea of awareness and the idea of ecosystem. We understand from the survey that many of you are still not aware of the fact that all these building blocks are available and needs a very large investment from the European Commission and the European Union to create these solutions. And these solutions, as explained, they are provided not only by the Commission, but by a wide community. Now, the challenge is, how can we grow this community? And to grow it, we would, of course, need your help and support. And we might just need you to be aware of them and to pass on the information, because whoever actually has the need will then get in contact with our teams, and then we can explore further the technical solution on how to solve that challenge. I think the first step here is that you are aware of the solutions, what problems they can solve, and we have a bunch of success stories online. And once you can pass on that message, like a pharmacy passes on the solution to whoever needs it, the same goes here. Then they will get in contact with us and we will take care of the rest.
Perfect. Thank you, João. So I'm going to have a look. We have a few minutes left for questions. I'm just going to have a look through here to see if there's any overlap funding. So there is funding available for certain projects for these solutions that we put a link in the WebEx chat. The direct link to access all of these building blocks, we will put it in the chat, and it is also available in the slides at the end of the presentation. I wanted to also give the floor to Anna-Marie for a question that came in through the WebEx chat. So I'll just read it out for you. So it was Jose Manuel Liceta who says, I understand you would like to see EC promoted solutions as part of the services provided by the hubs, but you have not addressed anything about the governance of those hubs to secure the service not only to business but also public service provision. How would you imagine the structuring of hubs in order to serve both communities? Alternatively, would it be wise to split hubs in those oriented to public and those addressing private services? What are your views? And I think obviously there's a lot of debate to be had on this question, and I don't think we'll be answering it entirely now. But Anna-Marie, maybe you have some words to say about this?
Yes, thank you, Maxime. And it's a very good question. So in the process of selecting hubs, there will be two steps. The first one will be that member states designate a certain number of hubs. And then in the second step, the European Commission will launch a restricted call for proposals. And what we want is that the network of hubs that we have, they serve all needs in Europe, but not every hub can do that on their own. It's the network of the hubs that will do that. So some of the hubs will have, well, every hub will have a certain specialization, and they choose that themselves based on their knowledge, their strengths, and also based on the needs of the local economy. So if there is not a lot of industry in a certain region, but there is a lot of public sector, well, there are public administrations, for instance, or e-government solutions are needed, a hub could be specialized on that because that is what their region needs, and there is a little industry. So based on using the public sector, they could create a new industry, let's say a GovTech industry, for instance. So every hub will have their own specialization. This will come bottom up. Some of the hubs will focus on public sector, others will focus more on industry. And this will come as a natural giving. And once we have selected all the hubs, then we will identify who does what, and we will offer or we will work with certain groups of hubs to make the offer better. But what we've also seen today is that many of these services could also be used by private companies. They can also be very beneficial for SMEs, or SMEs could use these building blocks to define their own offer. So in the end, the whole delineation will not be that strict, and therefore I do think it's also good that even hubs who are not focusing on public sector, they are aware about these services, and they could see how they could use them in their offer.
Thank you, Anna-Marie. I hope that answered your question. And don't forget, there will be another interactive portion at the end of this presentation when we'll go more into depth into the kind of collaboration that we might have. I have here a question. I'm wondering if any of the solutions could have some kind of problems arising from national and local legislation. Any experience to share about this? I think we have some things to say about that. Maybe Max or Joao want to jump in.
The solutions are based on EU-wide regulations, or most of them are, which means that the legal barriers or any blocking points have already been removed. So I'm talking about e-signature, for example, or the exchange of documents. Now, of course, there are always challenges when you have to comply with both EU and national regulations. And you might need to customize a little bit that solution so that it works for you. But in general, we don't really see many problems in terms of adoption of the solutions at local, regional, or national level. But maybe Max, do you want to complement that?
No, perfect. Actually, this is what it is all about, that we overcome these difficulties that historically have prevented a true common and internal market to pick up. And these are the barriers that we all have felt when we travel, when we work, when we study across borders, when we want to create a business across borders. We always used to run into difficulties. And this is what the EU's digital single market is trying to kick away. And the interoperability solutions, the building blocks, the data models that we are collectively with you developing actually directly attack these problems. So there should not be any barriers. And if there are barriers, we have the tools to collectively overcome them.
Maxine, still there?
Oh, I'd muted myself. Excuse me. Thank you very much, you guys, for weighing in on that. So I wanted to quickly answer this one. I don't think there's an EU-sponsored Trello-style software that is distributed outside. There may be solutions in the private sector that are Trello-like, but I don't think that it's in either of our service offerings. So correct me if I'm wrong, João and Max, but I really don't think so.
I use this opportunity just to clarify exactly what Anne-Marie was saying there. SMEs and the private sector are possibly benefiting from all this in two ways. They can use it. So when they sign, for example, it's always, I would say, good to know that they can sign it digitally and that that document will be recognized across the EU. So that's one way. And the other way is to build a solution compliant with the same standards and the same underpinning regulation, and therefore they can enlarge their market and they can sell their solution outside of their member state. And therefore, I think that your role is very important, because we see that SMEs sometimes don't really exploit the potential of the single market, and this is a very easy way for them to try and start doing exactly that.
Perfect, thank you, João. I'd set a timer for this section. We've already gone a little bit over. I think we can maybe take another 2 or 3 questions and then move on. How about this question? How can we support JoinUp for it to become an even stronger collaboration tool in Europe? Could this be a good example for a tool to strengthen the GovTech community in Europe?
I love it, Maxine. I love it. This is exactly what we're trying to do. And we have to admit that JoinUp is also growing. It is learning from the difficulties it had. It is trying hard to become better. But we want to make it the go-to tool for collaboration around GovTech. And we want to make it the tool where you can post your own solutions, where you can find partners in order to develop them further and go beyond your immediate use case. And actually, what we see, what is very positive, that is becoming even an international tool. So we are getting lots of calls from South America, from Africa, from Asia, for the reuse of some of the solutions that are posted there, which again, just to chime in with João, we see as a perfect opportunity for businesses to grow out of their local markets and to address even larger communities. So yes, yes, yes.
Perfect, thank you, Max. I was wondering if we could maybe address this question. Will the TESTA network deliver the high-value data sets into the common data spaces? How can TESTA be taken up through the digital innovation hubs? Can we answer that question in a minute, maybe? Aldo?
Yes, Max, even less actually. I mean, TESTA is there, it's available, and it can be used. So not just for the common data spaces, but for anything else, what is required. The important thing to keep in mind is that TESTA is a bridge between the administrations. We don't directly serve end users or private companies, and that is the thing to keep in mind. There are ways around this, okay, but you know the primary and the core business of TESTA is to deliver high secure, high speed connectivity between EU member states and and the institutions. So, as such, the answer is yes, but obviously it has to be taken within a context and understood better the role that needs to be applied here.
Thank you, Aldo. Perfect. So I see a question come in through the chat. Is there a comprehensive overall evaluation of the CEF program? I mean, on our website, we actually have a monitoring section. So we'll share the link at the end, but you can check out the adoption of our building blocks and the status of every single one of them on there. It's fairly transparent. And same thing with the INEA funding. They do publish the list of projects that have been funded. I also see a question. Most INEA open calls are for transnational projects. Is this right? I mean, I would say overall, yes, but every single call has its own set of requirements and specifications. So I wouldn't feel comfortable giving a blanket answer to this. I would check out the requirements of each individual calls. The calls are usually associated to a specific subject area or a specific building block. And I think I think some of the calls are still running, but a lot of them have.
Maxine, just to complement what you're just saying, of course, what CEF wants to do is to enable the cross-border aspect. So therefore, you have to keep in mind when applying to a CEF call, that even if you're not going immediately cross-border, that could happen, or it's your intention that that happens at some point. So just to explain why that idea of not international but European-wide connectivity needs to be kept in mind in your proposal, because of course the proposals, it's a competitive call, so those that keep this in mind better than those that are not considering the fact that we want to enable EU-wide interoperability.
Thank you, João. I will take a last question here. Is there a solution for 3D city models or geoinformation systems? Maybe I actually don't know who could answer this. Maybe
Caroline can answer
Caroline?
partially, because Context Broker can support those kind of initiatives. Yeah, maybe Caroline.
Yeah. I mean, of course, with the Context Broker, we are in quite tight relationship with the smart city world and different organizations there. So I would say in general, yes, this is about data modeling and what can be done to extract this data and make sense out of this. So as a general answer, this is the type of data that we can process. Yeah.
And sorry, can I come in and steal 2 seconds on this one? This is one, because we're speaking about the Future Digital Europe program. This is one of the areas that will in particular be addressed in the Future Digital Europe program from the next year on, where it's about creating digital twins. That is very important. And this allows me maybe also, as a good colleague of mine sent me in the chat, making a reference to a common project between cities all across Europe and the CEF program and the ISA2 program on the smart city cooperation, collaboration across sectors and areas, that is called Living in EU. And they can post this afterwards in the chat, that I think is relevant for exactly this question also. Thanks.
Thank you, Max. I think we'll wrap this up for this portion of the Q&A. There is going to be a little bit more interactivity. I just wanted to go through a little bit more material before we do so. I will switch back to the presentation, and then we can address some of your other questions later. So I'm going to share my presentation again with you. The dreaded switches. And we are going to move on. So here we go. I wanted to make a little aside from the actual solutions that we propose, and also talk about the concrete services that we as a program have developed over the years of building up experience, marketing and promoting these services and solutions across the EU member states. So we have built up a real background in terms of designing products and services and communicating about them to a target audience. And we think that this might be interesting for you to know, and that we could help each other as promoters of digital solutions across Europe. So we did ask if you helped your audience reach out to and co-create with and disseminate your offering to your target audience, and how you did so. And we discovered that most of you help your audiences go to market in a variety of ways. You all engage in a wide range of communications activities to support your mission and reach out to your intended target audience. This includes organizing intended events primarily, but also other activities like hosting co-creation workshops, hackathons, even some design sprints. And as a designer by trade, I'm very excited to hear that. And we also see some communication campaigns and, of course, webinars, and we are here in one. And the thing is that we at the European Commission do many of the same things, and we develop material for all of these activities. So we can help you think of ways to engage with your audience creatively, especially when it comes to our own solutions and the way that we could promote them together. Here's a little overview of the types of expertise that we've developed over the years. So we can design the full journey from idea to implementation to promotion and to support. We're using service design and design thinking techniques, and we can help you map your ecosystem of stakeholders and their needs. We can design new value propositions for services and solutions. We can promote services and solutions through communication campaigns and other efforts. So here we can maybe, there can maybe be some reuse of our material by you if it's considered useful to you. And finally, we can coach you in what it means to offer support services for the adoption of services and solutions. And finally, as an organization that is serving 27 member states and a complex web of stakeholders, we can also help operationalize processes, governance, and management to support your efforts. These are all things that we have experience with. I have a few example slides as an annex to this presentation. I am very mindful of time, so I won't be going into detail into them now. I will be, however, leaving them as an annex to the slides, and they'll show you a couple of examples of a campaign that we ran recently to support a launch of a specific feature on a product, and a big co-creation initiative called the Digital Innovation Challenge that we organized on a European scale, and that is still running right now. That was a way that we used to engage with a new target audience, the small and medium enterprise segment. So I won't be going over them in detail today because I actually want to leave time for interaction. And so therefore, let's talk, because I think that there were a lot of valuable questions that came up in the previous Q&A about our solutions. But here, I would like to spend some time finding out exactly how you feel about what we've presented to you, and then where we could go from there, and if there's interest in specific types of collaboration. So back to Menti, it's the same one. So if you have it still open on your phone or on your browser, then there will be no change for you. I will go back to my Menti presentation. So just give me a second here, and boom. Hopefully everything is showing up as it should. So I first want to check in with you guys and just verify a few things. So could you answer this question? Are the open and reusable solutions that we've presented today interesting for your target audience or not? I'm seeing some votes come in. It's a lot of yes. It's very encouraging. And if you're unsure, that's also something that we can pick up in the Q&A at the end. And obviously, even if one of the 8 solutions is interesting, go ahead and vote yes. You know, it doesn't have, you don't have to use them as a package. Okay, so some uncertainty, but also some yeses. It's quite encouraging for us to hear about. Obviously, your feedback is very interesting because you're quite close to the people that we're trying to target. Okay. All right, so I'm going to leave about 30 seconds per question and then move on, just so we can get ahead. But I see a clear trend here, which is a majority of people are pretty sure that they're interested in these, that their audience would be interested in our solution or that could benefit from them. And some of you are unsure. Maybe there's some unclarity about the scope of these solutions. In any case, I will close the voting for this now, and we'll go to the next slide if it wants to. Boy, it's always a struggle. Okay, here we go. So we presented to you 8 solutions. I would like to know which one seemed interesting to you. You can vote on multiple solutions at once. So join up.
Thanks for this, folks.
Woo! E-signature, e-translation. I see some e-translation coming up. TESTA, e-translation, context broker. I mean, I see it, some clear runner, so clear leaders, but in general, it seems like there's a pretty even spread. All right, so a lot of join up, a lot of e-translation, and a fair amount of context broker and TESTA. Closing the voting on this now. Okay, that's good to know. I mean, there's a good amount of variety in here, and that's encouraging also for us, because obviously we're trying to address the needs of a lot of different actors with a lot of different specific requirements when it comes to digital transformation. So thank you. That was good for us to take in. Let's move on to the next question. So which activities do you think that our solutions can help you with? So I'm talking about the activities that are part of the scope of digital innovation hubs, i.e. testing before investing, skills building and training, support to find funding, innovation ecosystem and networking, and helping your audience go to market. So here again, I'll put 30 seconds on the timer. Just see. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. I was expecting a little more test before invest, indeed. You can only choose one option. Oh, maybe I parametered this question wrong. I can't change it now. So in that case, we'll just dismiss these as that you all first wanted to go for innovation ecosystem and networking. But indeed, if you can only choose one option, then this is not ideal and not very representative. But thank you anyway. I see, assuming that a lot of you wanted to vote on multiple options, I think that we can see a bit of evenness across the board. And I'm also interested in the fact that you think that, you know, we can help your audience go to market, because this is something that we wanted to talk about. So thank you. We're gonna move on to the next. Again, I always struggle. Here we go. So there's going to be a range of questions. They're always going to be prefaced by this, which is, what do you need in order to better serve your audience when it comes to, and here, when it comes to, oh, good Lord, testing before investing services. So what are your pain points? What do you struggle with? What would you need help with? I'm going to put a minute on this one and just let you answer the question. If you need no help, then that's wonderful. Getting companies closer to investors. Okay. Funding for hours of involved personnel. Now that's something that maybe you want to elaborate on, as I'm not exactly sure what that means. Test tech, to clarify what needs to be tested. Okay, so there's some uncertainty about the mandate here. Now you need help to reach out to SMEs. Okay, that's good. We do have experience now in targeting the specific target group. Developing pilot platforms. So, I mean, I can only speak for the solutions that I know personally well myself, but I know that for a few of the building blocks, we do have sandboxes and test environments in which people can test the building block.
Yeah, most of them.
Yeah, most of them do, right? Quick prototyping and proof of concept. Again, this is something that, you know, if there's a sandbox environment, can go a bit faster. Infrastructure and test facilities. I mean, one of our building blocks is literally a test infrastructure for big data.
And for the testbed interoperability testbed, like we said, this is something where we are ready, for example, to help train innovation hubs to then train companies use it, just as an offer.
Perfect. Just gonna give this a few more seconds just to look if anything jumps out at me. Encouraging SMEs to actively use the services. Okay, very interesting. We do have some slides on like I mentioned, Digital Innovation Challenge that was organized by some colleagues over here at DIGIT that specifically looked at reaching out to small, medium enterprises to look at together with them how we could co-create services using our reusable solutions. And also, obviously, it's a big communication push and awareness effort about our solutions within the SME segment. So that's interesting to hear. We also recently launched the e-translation platform, opened it up for SMEs. So we've been campaigning for the last couple of months to open it up to make sure that SMEs knew that the translation was available for them to use, and we have some good uptake figures. I have not the most recent ones for the last month, but in a month we had some 4,000 or 6,000 new users. That was really good. Regulation, how public sector and private can work together. In public sector, there's some uncertainty there. So there's uncertainty about the collaboration between the public and private sector, the public-private partnerships. I'm not exactly sure what that uncertainty might be. My understanding is that if there are common standards for digital solutions, then anything that the private sector builds as a service or solution provider should be able to plug in seamlessly into the public sector administration. Now, that is our dream. It doesn't mean it's always that way, but it's what we're working towards with our reusable solution.
Maybe Maxine, to add to that is that the building blocks also offer testing facilities, what we call conformance testing, to confirm that the solution developed by the company indeed complies with the standards. So that once that solution is exchanging data, for example, with another similar solution that implements the same standard, that they are interoperable. So we are facilitating that through some of our services. We call them typically conformance testing services, and we do it for e-signature, for e-delivery, for invoicing, and many others.
Thank you, João. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question because there's still a few to go, and I'm mindful of time. I'm going to try once again, click through. Okay, so what do you struggle with when it comes to skills and training for your audience? What are your pain points here? Give it a minute to answer the questions as well. If you don't struggle, that is also very good news, obviously. If there's nothing, I'll just move on to the next one. What are your struggles when it comes to offering support to find funding? I think there's also slightly overlapping with the previous, the first question that we had. I'll give it a few more seconds, but if there are no particular pain points here. I see that someone wrote in the chat that the previous question was too long to answer. Well, we can talk about having a dedicated session. So, support to find funding, quick links to funding opportunities. All right, that's interesting. So maybe compiling a list of funding opportunities at the member state level would be interesting, as might be what you're saying. I'm struggling to understand the first answer. Without need to have certifications or certs from member states. Getting information on time and through all member states. Okay, so I hear that there's a communication effort to be made. SMEs don't have time to look for funding. And SMEs also typically would go, they're smaller, so they would also like be trying to consolidate some, trying to get some capital from loans at a bank. Intelligent tagging and more showcases. A European Investment Bank, okay, that's for big projects. I am actually unfamiliar with what the EIT network might be. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in here. But I hear that a lot of you are basically saying that you would like more information on what the funding opportunities and options are. I mean, on our end, at least speaking for CEF, we are linked to, we do have a funding arm in EA, but it's like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the CEF program ends this year. I'm sure there will be other types of grants available through the DEP program as well. And these are things that we do communicate about consistently. So maybe us collaborating a bit closer together, this is something that I'll ask about very shortly, is something that we need to be looking towards. I'll move on to the last question of this section. Oh, just last one. EIB is cowering with the EIC, European Innovation Council for SMEs and Startups. So I'm not sure if cowering was the word that we were looking for here.
I think it was cooperating.
Covering. Okay.
Yeah, covering in the chat.
Yeah, okay. Cooperating with the EIC.
But Maxine, could I just make a short point, jumping on something that Anne-Marie and Joao also said before? What is very important for us is to have learned the lessons of the last years, where in particular that some of the points say out that for SMEs, it is very difficult to find your way. And actually, if you're a startup, you are busy building your offer. You're not busy to try to find some complicated funding possibilities at the EU. And for this, the digital innovation hubs were planned and meant, because these are doors where I can get to information, to funding possibilities, more importantly, to cooperation facilities. And like one of the colleagues here said, the EIC, for example, the Innovation Council that was set up just now recently, is actually planned to help the startups and the smaller companies to access big corporates. And what we are trying to do also in the GovTech area, to make use of this model to access to help access smaller companies to the public administrations all across Europe. So the whole thinking behind the new funding period that will start very soon next year, the Digital Euro program, the new research program and so on, is to simplify access information for small companies and help the small companies all across Europe make best use of the big internal market and the tools that, like Joao said, are produced for free for all, actually, to be reused by the EU.
Thank you, Max. I'm going to move on actually, because I'm mindful of time. There's a few more questions that I wanted to cover, and I wanted to also close this presentation while not taking up too much of other people's time. So I'm going to skip all of, I'm going to go to this question. What are you struggling with when it comes to helping your audience go to market? And then I will go to the last question and maybe open the floor to some general Q&A. And give it a few more seconds here. I see no answers come in. The question, helping them find data on their reference market, which is also based on gender. That sounds intriguing. You mean demographic data in general? Anything to help segment your audience? All right, I'm waiting for making people understand the following steps. Market validation. We'd said we'd close at 11:30, but I would ask if you would stay on for another few minutes, probably aiming to close at 11:35. Finding qualified experts. I see. So you need data based on gender differences, not just aggregated data. So you mean here trying to identify that can help in many sectors like urban planning. Okay, yes, I understand. Help find funding for commercialization, market size and validation. Okay, so there's goodbye, Anna. Yes, I'll try to close in the next 5 minutes if you could stay on for a few more moments. Demonstrating ROI, return on investment and verifiable benefits. Okay, so a lot of issues to do with the early stages of your marketing strategy and less with the communication side. Although I hear that, I see that there's some about, market research and understanding your audience better. And this is all very, very interesting. These are all competencies that obviously are hard to breed within a smaller company and, require expert knowledge. Finding a way through institutions and public procurement officers. Oh, indeed, I can understand that concern as well. Okay. Some very useful insights here. So I will another assistance for joint cooperation and for appropriate governance promotion. Okay, so that's, this will be my hook into the closing portion of this. So I'm just going to skip to this. We actually, as the European Commission, would like to work together with you to find new ways to disseminate your offering. We've had a lot of interesting insights spark from this session, but it was mostly an informative session. Obviously, there's a lot of things here that would need some additional in-depth exploration. I think a lot of the issues that were raised in the Q&As were complex and deserve some extra attention that we really can't give it now. So would you be interested in doing a series of workshops remotely or in person on a topic in a smaller group or a series of smaller groups with some specific areas of interest? And I see that there's a lot of interest, so that'd be great. Okay. 17. I mean, that's nice. So what we'd like to do is design a real, a real service design workshop with you, where we could map out your main issues and then try and together think of ways in which we could collaborate to solve them. I'm not saying that we can come in and make every problem disappear, but I do think that we found some real opportunities here for collaboration, and also we've understood that there were some information gaps between us. And for us, of course, also it's interesting to hear, because you are in contact with the people in member states that we're trying to target with our solutions, what your experience is like. So we're very interested in finding out more and sitting together with you in a more formal way. Okay, great. Okay, this is very good news. So thank you very much. I will switch back to the slides. I see that there's interest in organizing some follow-up. This is something that we are very keen on. I'm just gonna go back to the slides and close, because I want to be mindful of the fact that we're already a couple of minutes over. Going to go here. I would like to go back to my slides. How do I do that? Here we go. So we've just had a webinar today. We obviously have explained to you what our solutions were. We would encourage you, starting now, if you're interested in the solutions, as some of you were, and think that they can be of service to your target audience, to spread the word about them. So we can help you disseminate these solutions to your stakeholders. I will put a link to our contact information and our websites on the next slide. Reach out to us. We can help you with communications material and support you in that effort. So this can be something that's done ad hoc from now on. If you feel like someone that comes to you for assistance is a particularly good candidate for a specific solution from ours, then feel free to tell them about it. But then I also wanted to verify, and this is something that there was some interest for, if you'd be interested in a follow-up session or two on a few of the topics and issues that we've uncovered today in our webinar. So I've seen that there was some interest. What we will do is reach out to you via email. You've all signed up through this webinar and given us your contact details. So we will reach out to you again and then see who would be interested in signing up for a specific workshop. It would take some preparation and planning, so we're only thinking this would happen towards the end of the year, but we're very happy and find it very encouraging to know that you have interest in working further with us. Obviously, we have some big overlaps in our mission towards digitalizing Europe. So thank you. We will get in touch. In the meantime, feel free to go to our websites. They're marked here. You see that both ISA2 and CEF Digital have their own websites on the European Commission domain. We also have provided some email addresses that you can contact both of our programs on. I would also, we will disseminate the slides of this presentation to you. There will be some additional slides in there to detail the Digital Innovation Challenge, which is a bit of communication effort that we ran that I told you about towards the small medium enterprises, and some slides about a communication campaign that we ran. So things that we haven't explained today because we didn't have time. In the meantime, be well. Thank you for being here. I will maybe, thanks also to all our speakers for their time and for their keeping of time also, and for their very interesting insights. Thank you all, and I'll leave you now. We will close this webinar, and yes, thanks. That's it from me. Signing off.
Thank you very much. Stay safe. Bye.
Thank you, Max.